Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my beginner's guide to PvP, and this is a video that's been a long time coming. So the most questions I get on YouTube when it comes to specific topics in general, aside from the more frivolous and silly ones, it's generally, how do I do well at Dark Souls? How do I do this at Dark Souls? Will you teach me this? Will you teach me that? How do I do these things? And people don't ask me this because I'm the best Dark Souls player on the planet. It's nothing to do with that. It's just a case of they see me using my knowledge in my videos, and what this is going to be is me essentially giving that knowledge back to the beginning level people who are just getting into the game. It's never too late, and hopefully this video series will cover some of that. I'm going to be going over the basics. The first video is this one, is going to be about backstabs, then I'm going to move on to the lag, then I'm going to move on to the mentality, and then I'm going to move on to some more techniques. Because there's a lot of detail to Dark Souls, and this gives me an opportunity to cover it in a more advanced way, or a more specific way, and I can be a little bit more, fancy in Photoshop and things like that to make the video have some interesting watermarks, and hopefully keep it interesting for me to do and for you to watch. So in Dark Souls, backstabs do not work the same way they do in PvE. If you try to play like PvE in PvP, you're going to die. And that is something that I'm going to go over in the mentality part later on, but as it stands I'm going to keep it focused on backstabs because that's exactly what this video is. So backstabs. The ability to hit an opponent with critical damage by exploiting their positioning and stabbing them in the back. Doesn't work that way online, and there are a multitude of different ways to backstab, and I'm going to break them up here, show you examples, and hopefully you'll be able to repeat these and you'll stay alive longer. So the very first one is going to be the lock-on backstab. A lot of people will blame lag for this. The reason this exists is because of the latency. A lot of people will think they got lag stabbed, say that you were in front of them and you stabbed them in the back, all that kind of good stuff, the general ignorant messages you get because people don't understand how the system works. So the lock-on backstab is simple. You lock onto your opponent, as they move towards you, you run to their shoulder. You can do their left shoulder or their right shoulder. I prefer their left. The instant you go to pivot, as you get to their shoulder, if you press attack, you will backstab them. And because of the latency, this can be very difficult to avoid. It's either a lock-on backstab or a pivot backstab. There's a couple of names for them. I'm going to call them what I know them from, and you should be watching them right now on the video as I'm explaining them. That is the first one. That is the first one to understand. How do you defend against this, you might ask? Well, counter backstabbing. A very important part of PvP that not a lot of people know, and people will blame backstabs until they learn these things and they learn to better themselves with this knowledge. So the first notion you should always think in Dark Souls is that people are going to backstab you. That's how the mechanic works. That's how the game works. It is an economy of backstabs. Everybody is going to go for your back. So with this knowledge, you know what to look for. They do a little sideways running, moving motion when they're moving towards your back, when you're backing up. Because just backing up is not good enough. You will still get backstabbed every so often if somebody's laggy enough or knows what they're doing enough. So the best thing to do is to counter backstab. To counter backstab, all you need to do is circle while your opponent's circling you, and the moment that you become parallel with their back and they cross in front of you, you press attack. If done correctly, you will backstab them instead of them backstabbing you, and they will be really confused because it looks dead weird on their screen. If their connection is close to yours, or there's a lot of lag involved, it may even result in a cancelled backstab, which is either when a player takes damage during a backstab and the animation plays out, but neither person receives any damage. This can also happen, so be aware of this. But those are the first two you need to know, or you're going to die. The next ones are a little bit more advanced. You have your roll backstab, which is as easy as it sounds. You can do it with lock-on and without lock-on, but it's better without the lock-on. And all you do, wait for your opponent to swing, roll over their swing, behind them, disengage the lock, and then quickly turn around and attack, and you will backstab them. If done correctly and if mastered, this is the most deadly technique in Dark Souls because it's extremely difficult to counter unless you know some more advanced techniques, which I will be talking about later on. There's also reverse roll backstabs. which are a little bit harder to do because it's a much more advanced technique. so I will show it in this video. You'll probably be watching it right now, but I'm not going to go over it too much because I might put those into an advanced techniques all of themselves and explain them there. The unlocked backstab. This is another one of the more advanced techniques that I'm going to probably cover more when I go into unlocking as a specific video on how to fight that way, but it is essentially disengaging lock and using your mobility skills to sneak behind an enemy and get a backstab. Things like latency will help this, as all you really need to do is run, pivot and stab. It's literally that simple. This is also something that can be practiced against the AI on PvE because it's a very effective strategy there as well. The final backstab, which is probably the easiest one to achieve but the easiest one to spot usually, is the poise backstab, which is where a player will use their poise, the fact that they can take a hit without flinching and they can circle round to your back and backstab you while you're in the animation of attacking them. And this is everywhere in the forest or in people who like to wear exceptionally heavy armour, because all they're going to try and do is backstab you, you swing your weapon, they tank it, they backstab you. It's very easy to do and it's very easy to learn, so this will probably be the first one you get the most success with and the one you may already be doing and not know you're doing it. So stack the poise, run towards that back, stab them in the back. How do you counter this? There are ways to counter poise backstabs, but you need to know that the person's going to be doing it. One very risky way is waiting for them to circle, then turning around and parrying. Depending on the connection will depend on whether or not this is even remotely viable, because it is an advanced technique and it's also challenging to do in the best of times, but you can land that parry. But once again, that's something I'm going to look into a little deeper in another video. I wanted to keep this one slightly shorter, just so that it can be, you know, beginner's guide to PvP, how to backstab, how to not be backstabbed, how to survive. Thank you for watching, and you take care now.